Those who do not think the black condition is in crisis, they do not believe that black people are unemployed, live in dehumanizing poverty, are entitled to believe so and must oppose us vehemently because we'll confront them that way ourselves. But we're not about individuals. We're about making sure that there is black emancipation, that our children do not believe they are inferior, that our children know that we built pyramids, we had cities, we had universities in this continent, we taught the world mathematics, we told the world oratory, we had everything. And we want to do that. We want to start with that so that black people can believe in themselves. It's all a mindset that we can build schools and universities and every community can participate in solving the black problem. White power still believes that we are a group of savages to be taught to be civilized. A lot of black people also believe that they are a group of savages that can do nothing without white validation. And our leaders think so, by the way. Our leaders, the corruption you see, the buffoonery you see, is caused by lack of faith in blackness. And we have to restore that. We have to restore first faith in blackness. And then we must do what we call as a program that we will do is moral restoration. And so that our kids can get out of the streets where they are getting drugs. But they won't get out of the streets if we are offering the same education that colonialism gave them, the same inferiority that is taught in our universities and our schools about blackness, the same belief by black lawyers, black professionals, black people, black teachers, black doctors, that knowledge comes from whiteness. Knowledge comes from knowing who you are.
Zimbabweans are suffering. We are looking at a country where reliable information tells us that 50% of the population right now is surviving on less than $2.15, which is characterized as extreme poverty. We are looking at about 65% of Zimbabweans population said to be living in general poverty. And some statistics even put 85% of Zimbabweans living in upper middle economy poverty. So those are not enviable figures. Those are not figures that we can go on Newsroom Africa and boast about. You know, it's one thing to talk about flashy figures of the fastest growing economy of 6% economic growth rate, and yet that is not translating into an improved standard of livelihood for the ordinary citizens.
Knowing who you are is more important than riches that people are chasing today. Because without identity, you actually have nothing. I do not agree with anyone who's pushing a narrative of Zimbabweans leaving the country just because of criminal gangs. Why can't we fix Zimbabwe? Why do we think that solutions are outside? No one wants to discuss about a black child. Why is it always a black child? There are systems that control the world. Those who make decisions, and I'm referring to the global orders, know their target. Let me read what Tendai said. He said, white people came to Africa, looted the resources, and sent the money back to develop their countries. Asians are now in Africa exploiting its resources and sending the money back to their countries. African politicians are looting their countries and sending the money to Europe and Asia. But somehow you want to deny the fact that there's something seriously wrong with us black people. That's exactly what they want to hear. Us think that is us the problem. It is not. Zimbabwe is packed with qualified men and women that can live that country in 5 years. You will never remember Zimbabwe. But who's blocking them? You guys, if you watched Gold Mafia, you could have known what is going on in Zim. The ones that are looting our minerals are sitting in Dubai. And those are international gangs controlling just a clique who are overzealous, greed, and ignorant. Mnangagwa has got his own handlers for your own information. You actually don't understand Zim, do you? So yesterday, Emerson Mnangagwa snapped a groundbreaking ceremony in Borodale for his friend. I think most of you know him, Billy. It went like wildfire yesterday on social media when people were asking questions, why? Why did Mnangagwa snap this gathering? He is well known for cutting ribbons, right? And I'm sure he was going to be happy to cut ribbons in Borodale. But for some reason, he didn't. Because he doesn't want you to know what his games are, or who handles him, or who he's playing his games with. But he's not smart. He's not smart. I want you to look at that. It was the National Voice. Take a look at that headline right there. Empty chair, big questions. President absent at Rottenbach's project breaks ground in Borodale. When Oxford Properties held its groundbreaking ceremony for the Borodale Park development, one thing stood out above everything else. The president was absent. His speech was read. His name was engraved on the plaque. But the man himself never appeared. In Zimbabwean politics, this matters. The president has frequently attended events considered politically or economically significant. His absence from a ceremony carrying his official endorsement is therefore bound to invite questions. A controversial figure. They are referring to Billy himself. The empty chair speaks more questions, not less. What's going on with Emerson Mnangagwa and Billy? Your guess is as good as mine, isn't it? All right, we need to move on very quickly. All right, so let's talk about the recently leased plane that is trending on social media. You can't convince me that we are serious. Look at those pictures. We literally leased that plane. Look at those pictures, guys. Are we played again by criminals? I can't. Look at those pictures. But you will be surprised to know that Uganda bought brand new ones. What stops us Zimbabweans from acquiring brand new planes? Considering that the money is there, we can see it, people buying private jets with taxpayers' money. Meaning Zimbabwe isn't poor, y'all. It's just being led by mafia, criminal gangs. We never have enough. I was shocked to see that even Mugabe wants to be as one of the members of parliament. Guys, you know, the level of entitlement and evil in Zimbabwe should be studied. Why are you guys so obsessed with things of this country? You will never have enough. With all the money that they looted from Zimbabwe, the farms, they still want to go for the little thing. Allow other people to serve. Bona should just stay at home. Bona, you can't cook, clean, do something with your life. Sewing, do something. Or selling, or do have a shop or something and stay away from the things of Zimbabwe. You cannot. You just have to always be in the government. We really have a problem in Zimbabwe, don't we? It's all about looting. Greed is a dangerous drug.
What's the situation, what's the response of the Zimbabwean government, the state, to this unfolding humanitarian crisis? Tendai?
Yes, thank you so much, Prof. It's good to be here, and thank you again for the invite. The short answer to your question is that the response has been nothing more than insulting. I can call it that, insulting. The elephant in the room is, why did these people leave Zimbabwe in the first place? Has already been alluded to. The main issue is economic. We know that the exodus of Zimbabweans to mainly to South Africa, some to Botswana, and a few others to the United Kingdom was primarily triggered by the economic meltdown soon after the dawn of the new millennium. after the land reform program, violent as it was, the economy collapsing, the hyperinflation, the company closures, the unemployment reaching, shocking levels of over 95%, which left a lot of Zimbabweans trapped in a cycle of poverty. And they decided to leave the country for greener pastures or for survival. It was not even for greener pastures because there were no pastures in Zimbabwe. So it was for them to seek survival or else they'll die. So 20-something years later, we see the same Zimbabweans being kicked out of South Africa and told to go back home. And they are back. We are told that we are looking at a number of around 104,000 Zimbabweans that have returned so far. But they are coming back to the same country that they fled from. They are coming to the same country of lack of opportunities. They are coming to the same country of over 90% formal unemployment. They are coming back to a country with a very high cost of living. How are these people supposed to integrate? We can welcome them back as families and friends and say, "Come, welcome. You can stay in my house. I can take care of you," as hard as it will be that because those are 2, 3, 4, 5 extra mouths to feed. But how are these people going to survive? How are they going to take care of their families that they brought back, or the families that they were taking care of while they were in the diaspora and they left their children and their wives or husbands back home? So that lack of opportunities is what is going to trigger an even worse humanitarian crisis than what we are faced right now. It's bad enough as it is at the moment, but there is a chance that it can trigger civil unrest in Zimbabwe itself. Because how are these 104 and counting? More of them are coming back. I've been speaking to a few Zimbabweans who are still based in South Africa, and they are talking of coming back. Even the government itself, I remember yesterday, was it, when the Minister of Information and was talking about possibly accommodating 1.4 million Zimbabweans who could be returning. But they talk as if it's so easy to reintegrate 1.4 million Zimbabweans. At one point, we were shocked to hear the ZANU-PF spokesperson, Chris Mutsvangwa, on South African television. I think it was Newsroom Africa, boasting that Zimbabwe had the capacity to absorb these people. He was talking about the fastest growing economy in the region. He was talking about nearly everyone in Zimbabwe being gainfully engaged in income, generating projects, gold mining and so forth. But that is ridiculous. Zimbabweans are suffering. We are looking at a country where reliable information tells us that 50% of the population right now is surviving on less than $2.15, which is characterized as extreme poverty. We are looking at about 65% of Zimbabwe's population said to be living in general poverty. And some statistics even put 85% of Zimbabweans living in upper middle economy poverty. So those are not enviable figures. Those are not figures that we can go on Newsroom Africa and boast about. It's one thing to talk about flashy figures of the fastest growing economy of 6% economic growth rate, and yet that is not translating into an improved standard of livelihood for the ordinary citizens. Zimbabweans are getting poorer. Actually, Zimbabweans are poorer today than they were in 2017 when this government came to power. So when we hear of 104,000 Zimbabweans who are back to right now in Zimbabwe, how are they surviving? How do they, what real opportunities are there for them to continue taking care of themselves and their families, and even with the black tax of their extended families, their grandmothers, their aged mothers and fathers and cousins and everyone else that they've been taking care of for the past 10, 15 years? How are they going to genuinely reintegrate? Because the most logical form of reintegration is not necessarily social. It's economic, it's financial. So as long as the government is not talking, real figures, real policies and plans that improve the economy of Zimbabwe, because there is no way the government of Zimbabwe can say, all right, we are going to open up jobs for the 104,000 Zimbabweans who have returned from South Africa, when the rest of us are unemployed. How are they going to do that? That is pharisaical. So this is a problem, Prof, in that I foresee if this issue is not immediately addressed, it's either those people who are back from South Africa today are already planning to go back, because they'll always have to come up with another plan of how to go back. And this time, hopefully go to a different area than where they were before they were kicked out. If we were staying in Joburg, we might make a plan to go back and stay in Polokwane or in Durban or somewhere else, or somewhere where they think there's less of this match and Dudula, because I'm sure there are some areas in South Africa where it's a bit quieter. But you are going to see in those areas, very soon there's going to be an influx of these same migrants that they kicked out. They're going back very soon. Those who decide to stay in Zimbabwe, there might be some social unrest in the near future, because as long as they are back here and there are no opportunities for them, they will become even more disgruntled. Join that with Zimbabweans who are already here, who are already disgruntled. That is a powder cake that can explode at any time. So we need to see the government of Zimbabwe making some real tangible moves to improve the economy of Zimbabwe, to open up opportunities for investment, opportunities for real empowerment, even if it's self-empowerment. Let's see that on the ground, not distributing of cars and cash. That is not empowerment. We need to see real empowerment that will get the people of Zimbabwe to take care of themselves and their families. We also need to see, I know Comrade Vavi did mention the ANC and its lack of legitimacy. That is another problem that is also affecting us here in Zimbabwe. If the ANC government was serious, they would introspect and do a post-mortem and say, why are there so many Zimbabweans in South Africa in the first place? We've already mentioned economic mismanagement. Corruption is very rife and rampant in Zimbabwe. Right now, we are talking about CAB 3, which is now an act, constitutional amendments that's extending the terms of office of those that empower the parliament and the president. All these things are a threat to the stability of Zimbabwe. All these things are a threat to the economy of Zimbabwe. And there is a serious danger that as the economy and the political situation in Zimbabwe continues to deteriorate, it will push more Zimbabweans out into South Africa. So the South African government should be proactive. Where are they all this time? In coming to their brothers and sisters in ZANU-PF and pushing them to implement real economic policies that advance the livelihoods of Zimbabweans, not self-serving policies that we have been seeing of late, like this constitutional amendment number 3, which has got nothing to do with the ordinary people of Zimbabwe, but it's got everything to do with the entrenchment of power of a few people. So where is President Ramaphosa? He was here 2 months ago, we understand, clandestinely. Did he talk about constitutional amendments? Did he push his Zimbabwean brother not to go ahead? If he did, certainly he was not listened to, because now we have the constitutional amendments in law. We saw the president of South Africa meeting with some very shady characters here in Zimbabwe who are being accused of massive corruption and looting of national resources that are contributing directly to the economic crisis that we are seeing in Zimbabwe. So what pressure did the South African government put on the Zimbabwean leadership to crack down on for corruption, to crack down on high-level looting of national resources, so that these resources that are going into the pockets of 2, 3, 4 individuals can benefit the people of Zimbabwe. That is how we can curb this consistent and persistent influx of people into South Africa from Zimbabwe. We need a Zimbabwe that works. We need a Zimbabwe whose economy provides opportunities. Zimbabweans who are going to South Africa are not going there for fun. Most of them are not happy in South Africa. They're not happy leaving their children here in Zimbabwe. I know of women who have not seen their own children in 2 years, 3 years. If they are fortunate enough, they only see each other once a year during Christmas. Can we honestly say that that woman who's doing domestic work in South Africa is happy? She's not. She would rather be here with her children. But the very fact that she is still there and staying in South Africa is out of necessity, because she knows that coming back here will be as good as death because of the economic situation. She will not be able to take care of her children. So we need to put that in mind and say Zimbabweans do want to go back home, but they want to go back home to a country that is working, to a country that is functional, to a country where they can live a decent life, of a country that possesses some of the world's most sought after minerals, like lithium, like gold, like platinum, and all these minerals. Why are those resources not benefiting the people of Zimbabwe? Is it not an embarrassment that a country that is continually boasting of the fastest growing economy in the region is the home to so many migrants that are leaving the country? It's an embarrassment to so much poverty. Some of the poorest people on the African continent are from Zimbabwe. Why is that? So we need our brothers and sisters, our comrades, the so-called former liberation movements, to finally go back to those ethos of the liberation struggle, because I believe the liberation struggle was fought for the ordinary people of South Africa, of Zimbabwe, of Mozambique, of Namibia, and all these countries in the Southern African region. It was supposed to be about the ordinary people. It was not supposed to be about those that are in power. So let's see those former liberation movements, if they are still standing true to their ideals, to come together and pressure the Zimbabwean government to do what is best for the people of Zimbabwe, to put the interests of the people of Zimbabwe first before those of those that are in power. Only then can we see real change in the Southern African region, real change in Zimbabwe, where both the Zimbabwe itself becomes prosperous and stable, and as a result, South Africa itself becomes prosperous and stable, and they don't have to worry about us, because we'll be back in our own country, living our own lives. Most urgent thing that we need to do is solidarity, has already been highlighted by nearly every speaker here. Of course, this cannot be expected from the former liberation movements. They've already exhibited their, bias and their lager mentality, that they stick together. They never hold each other to account. As Zimbabweans, we've been experiencing this for the past 25 years. We have had elections, rigged elections. We have had repressive policies, but not once has SADC stood with the people of Zimbabwe. They've stood together with the leadership. And as we are talking right now about mass migration of Zimbabweans into South Africa, remember when this started in the early 2000s, even the South African leader at the time, Thabo Mbeki, claimed that there was no crisis in Zimbabwe, and yet people were being brutalized, including Operation Mrambatsvina that you have mentioned, where the 2008 killings of suspected opposition supporters. So nothing can really come out of SADC. But as civil society, we've already got people like Comrade Vavi in South Africa. We've got Fernando in Mozambique. You are here in Zimbabwe, Prof, and others. Let's work together. Let's put our efforts together and put pressure on our governments that they finally put the interests of their people first. We are all migrants, as you said, Professor, at the beginning of this discussion. I myself am a second generation Zimbabwean. My grandfather is from KwaZulu Natal. My actual surname is Mbofana with a P, not with a B. That has been Shonanized. So I'm actually my grandfather was a migrant from South Africa. So we have to accept that this message has to go to all those that are in South Africa to understand that we are all migrants and there is nothing wrong with migration. And we have to accept each other as migrants, and it was part and parcel of the liberation struggles of our respective countries that they were based on migration. Jacob Zuma, is already mentioned, was in Mozambique for most of that time. So let's have civil society putting pressure on our governments to fix their economies. We need pressure on the United Nations to dispatch a UN rapporteur to look into what is happening right now in South Africa. It's a mess. It's a crisis. It's a humanitarian crisis. You know, I was watching the news just 2 weeks ago of Zimbabweans and Malawians who have been stranded in the open for the past weeks, you know, ever since the 30th of June protests. No abolition facilities. They don't even know where to bath. Some were saying that they had not bathed in days. And eating is another thing. So how can we take that as normal? That is not normal. That is a humanitarian crisis. So we need civil society, we need pressure groups to come together to put pressure, and also for the UN to dispatch a UN rapporteur, and also to pressure the governments of our various countries to put pressure on each other to implement real change, real economic policies that create opportunities, that empower the people rather than to empower those that are in power. So those are the things that I can say we need to recommend. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Tendai. Thanks very much.